All right, before we go any further, big development coming in from West Asia. Lebanon-based Hezbollah group has announced large-scale rocket and drone launches towards Israel. This comes right after the Israeli military launched preemptive strikes in Lebanon after detecting preparations for large-scale attacks by Hezbollah. Hezbollah says its attack is an initial response to a top commander's killing of its commander Fuad Shukr last month. Now, the militant group has said it has begun an air attack with a large number of drones targeting deep into Israel. Hezbollah fighters have also targeted enemy positions and barracks and Iron Dome platforms with rockets. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has declared a 48-hour state of emergency across the country. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu began a security cabinet meeting at around 4 GMT or 7 a.m. local time. Now, further, Israel's Ben Gurion Airport has delayed departing flights and redirected arrivals to other airports. This comes just after Israeli Defense Forces warned Israelis to expect incoming missiles and drones launched by Hezbollah. Military spokesperson Daniel Hagari said that Hezbollah will soon fire rockets and possibly missiles and UAVs towards Israeli territory. Hagari added that the forces are monitoring Hezbollah's preparations to carry out large-scale attacks on Israeli territory. Now, the IDF has said that they are attacking and eliminating Hezbollah threats and will do whatever it is necessary to protect the citizens of Israel.
A short while ago, the IDF identified Hezbollah terrorist organization preparing to fire missiles, rockets towards Israeli territory. In a self-defense act to remove these threats, the IDF is striking terror targets in Lebanon from which Hezbollah was planning to launch their attacks on Israeli civilians.
The military has also asked residents of areas in southern Lebanon to leave immediately. Remember, that is where the Iran-backed militant group operates from. The Israeli military has issued a warning saying anyone who is near areas where Hezbollah operates is in danger and should leave immediately to protect themselves and their families. For more on this, we are now being joined by our correspondent Jody Cohen on the phone line with us. Jody, what is the latest that you can bring to us?
Good morning, Jocelyn. We obviously woke up to a very serious situation. We've been told to expect a difficult 48 hours and an emergency situation has been declared. The Home Front Command, which is the part of the army which instructs civilians on how they should act during times of war, has basically said that everybody north of Tel Aviv and north should stay near a shelter. So that's everywhere from Tel Aviv and Ra'anana, where I am, towards the north of the Golan. So this is more than half of the country, and the majority of the Israeli population are now being told to limit gatherings to 30 people or less and to stay near a shelter at all times. The Security Cabinet, we know, is meeting at 7 o'clock, and we're expecting to hear announcements regularly. We know that the flights from the main airport in Tel Aviv have been stopped this morning. We just heard that they're just now back on. And we've also been told that the ambulance services are at their peak readiness across the whole country.
Right. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has begun a security cabinet meeting. What is the latest you can tell on that?
So we would never hear any announcements before or even during a security cabinet meeting. Perhaps there'll be something announced afterwards. We might hear statements from the government spokespeople or the IDF spokespeople. We know that Hezbollah has been fighting against Israel since the 8th of October. And remember, that's the day after Hamas's attack on the 7th of October and several days before Israel responded to Hamas. There have been calls to prevent an escalation across the region. We also know that Benny Gantz, who remember was part of the Israeli coalition government before he left quite recently, and he's seen as a serious, like a rival to Prime Minister Netanyahu, who's now in the opposition, that the government has the full, broad and absolute backing across the spectrum for what they're doing in responding to Hezbollah's attack and also preempting this strike. So Hezbollah has said that they've fired 320 rockets so at Israel this morning. They said that they've launched a major attack against Israel. There have been numerous sirens in northern Israel, so everyone is on alert for what would happen next.
Right now, Israeli military had earlier told the residents to evacuate. Were the Israelis already anticipating this attack?
So we're hearing that, obviously, the IDF have been monitoring everything that Hezbollah, Hamas, and all the Iranian proxies and Iran as well. They've been on peak alert, monitoring everything that its enemies have been preparing and carrying out. So we're hearing that the rocket launchers were sort of prepared at 4:45 to strike at 5 o'clock, and that the IDF preemptively struck Hezbollah's rocket launchers in order to thwart a major attack against Israel. We're also hearing that Israel is now striking Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, and that Hezbollah are also carrying out numerous rocket fire. Israel prepared for drone attacks, missile attacks. So as we hear more, we'll obviously keep everyone updated. But Israel, I would say, was on peak alert, ready for an attack, and because of their intelligence and monitoring, they saw that this attack was being planned and they managed to thwart it.
Right, and now this is also coming as the ceasefire talks were in course. What do we have on that?
Yes, so this is obviously set against the ongoing talks between, not directly between Hamas and Israel, but between the mediators and Israel, and also with the mediators, again, not directly having talks with Hamas, because Hamas were not sending a delegation to those talks, but they were in communication with Hamas. Israel has accepted the US-backed bridging proposal. Hamas had not. The talks were due to continue, and President Biden was asked nearly in a matter of a few hours ago how the talks were going, and he gave a thumbs up in response. There are 109 hostages still being held in Gaza. The talks were concerning a partial hostage release and a truce in the fighting. But again, that is between fighting between Hamas and Israel. Now, analysts and experts have been suggesting that if an agreement could come about between Hamas and Israel, then we would see a cessation of hostilities potentially from Hezbollah. But others are saying that that would be separate, that Hezbollah were not party to this deal, which wasn't even agreed. The talks were due to carry on today. So it remains to be seen what will happen with those talks. But right now, the Security Cabinet is obviously occupied with dealing with this emergency situation. And they've said that the emergency situation has been declared for 48 hours.
Now, these emergency declarations that you're talking about, what areas do we know have they been initiated for in Israel?
So they said it's the north of Tel Aviv, and the entire country north of Tel Aviv. So Tel Aviv is pretty much in the center of the country. It's in line roughly with Jerusalem. I mean, these are the two major population centers in the country. Then you've got Haifa in the north of the country, which is the largest city there. So you've got the three largest cities in the whole of Israel that are likely to be covered by this order to stay near shelters and to limit gatherings to less than 30 people. Now, it's by far the majority of the people living in Israel are also subject to this order, because towards the south of the country, there are towns, there are cities, there are villages, but you've also got a huge desert area. So we're talking about by far the majority of the population in Israel now in shelters. We don't know how long this order is going to be in shelters. Near shelters is what they've been told. Everyone's been told to stay within running distance, basically, of a shelter, so that if a siren goes off at any time, as many people as possible can be protected. So that would mean either staying in their apartment shelter or in a communal public shelter, or just some sort of protected space like an underground. It's unclear if places like shopping centres will be open. I imagine not, because there would be more than 30 people in the shopping centre, so I imagine that they've been shut. So this is obviously going to have a big impact for most of the people living in Israel. It remains to be seen how long it will last, because we know that an emergency situation has been declared for 48 hours, but it could be that they lift or they they raise the situation in terms of the restrictions of where people can be.
All right. That was our correspondent Jody Cahan on the phone line with us. Jody, of course, take care, and we'll, of course, be back with you for more updates.